Hey everybody, welcome back to Cool Stuff Etc. My name is Riley. It's been a minute for sure, but today we're going to talk about the movies that I watched over October. The horror movies I watched, I did one, at least one every day, but I think it ended up being about 45 or 50, which is pretty awesome. Because last year I did not succeed. Before we get into it, I'm trying something new where we have music kind of playing in the background, so maybe that will help. With the awkward silences. I don't know. What we're listening to is Silver Sword. This is a fake OST for an old arcade beat 'em up. This is put out by HDK. They're a pretty good label. I like them a lot. They are very committed to tabletop role playing and just like the bit, because it's comes with a little instruction manual for the game, which doesn't actually exist, but it's just cute little details like that, So yeah, I have a selection here of movies that I wanted to talk about. These are not all the movies that I watched. If you cared to see all of those, along with my reviews and stuff, you can check my letterbox. It's in the description, or it should be. Sorry if I forgot. So I'm just talking about the movies that I enjoyed. I'm not talking about any movies that I disliked, which there weren't many of them. Just gonna try to be succinct as much as possible. Another second, I'm just realizing a second purpose for this tape playing is to keep me in time. So if this side ends before the video is done, I've failed. So anyway, why don't we get started? The first movie that I watched during October was House of the Devil by Ty West. This was I don't know if it's his first movie or not, but it's earlier in his career, definitely before X and before Pearl, and it's a throwback to the movies of the 70s, but it's a throwback that works. A lot of movies try to be throwbacks and they just kind of don't get it, but this really feels like and looks like a movie from that era. I really enjoyed it. It's about a babysitter who goes to this family's home, and things might happen or things might not happen. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's awesome. It was a great way to kick off the movie marathon. Then the next day, on October 2nd, I watched The Ninth Configuration, directed by William Peter Blatty, who directed probably my favorite movie of all time, Exorcist 3. This was on Shudder, so I just assumed it was a horror movie, but it's really not in the traditional sense. It's more of a psychological drama. But it was phenomenal. This is the only other movie that Blatty had directed, and it's also a 5-star movie. It was very, very engaging. The acting by all the guys in the movie, it's really a male-dominated film. Were phenomenal. Stacy Keach, I believe his name is. The guy who plays Herschel from The Walking Dead, I can't remember his name, but he's in it, and he's phenomenal. Father Dyer from Exorcist 3 is also in it. I can't remember the actor's name either. Sorry about that. But essentially, it's a movie about a bunch of war veterans that all come down with psychosis of some kind at the same time, and so they're sequestered or quarantined in this castle in the Northwest to try and find out if they're faking it or not. And Stacy Keach's character comes in and is the psychiatrist who's tasked with discovering the truth. And I won't say more about it because it takes some turns and stuff. It's a really engaging movie. I highly, highly recommend it, even though it is not a horror film, decidedly. On the 3rd, I watched From Beyond, directed by Stuart Gordon, who also directed the original Reanimator movie. And this movie is much in line with that. Crazy practical effects, lots of gonzo wild stuff going on, decidedly horny for no particular reason. But I think in this movie that it actually does a better job of justifying it, but it's but then they take that justification an extra step. So it's probably twice as horny as Reanimator, but it was a really good time. If you're grossed out by that kind of stuff, I would say to stay away, but I think this is a really enjoyable, kind of campy, old school horror film from the 80s. Then on the same day, I also watched The Hills Have Eyes remake, directed by Alexander Aja. In this movie, I really enjoyed up until the end. I think the ending kind of undermined what I felt the movie was going for, which was kind of a critique of like Western imperialism, like with the war in the Middle East. It seemed like they were trying to make a statement about it, and how sending troops abroad can have ramifications at home. And then the ending just kind of like sucked all the life out of it, it just kind of, yeah. But it's great otherwise. If you can kind of ignore the ending, the effects are really cool. The acting's not bad. The filmmaking is quite good, and it's not as exploitative as I was worried that it might be, in terms of like the sexual assault scene that happens, because it happens in the original as well. Overall, I think it's a pretty great remake. I just wish the ending was a little bit different. Then on the same day also, I watched 3 movies that day. I went and saw The Shining in theaters because they had re-released it, in a sense. And yeah, I mean, it's The Shining. What can you say? It's phenomenal. It's probably as close to a perfect horror film as you're going to get. Very psychological. I just on this rewatch, it's been many years since I had seen it initially, but on this rewatch, I definitely picked up more on the Jack Nicholson character's like previous abuse. When you watch it when you're like 16 years old and you don't really have experience with that sort of thing, or really experience with watching movies and like picking out details and stuff, you don't pick up on that, and I definitely picked up on it more and got more out of the movie this time than I have, even though I loved it previously as well. So then on October 8th, I went into the theater again and saw Saw 10. And let me just say, movies, they're back. The movies are back. Saw 10 was really fun. I'm really glad that they kind of took a step back and made sure to focus more on John Kramer, who is the most integral character to the Saw franchise. There are, of course, like auxiliary people like Amanda and the detective guy that I can't remember the name of, and Gordon as well. But this movie made sure to focus more on John Kramer, and they really take their time like setting up the movie before they just like jump into the traps and stuff. And so I just appreciated that. It's otherwise it's a pretty standard Saw film. It looks nicer because it's more modern, and there's probably a semblance of theater bias to my review, but I thought it was overall a great movie, and I'm hoping that they'll make more in the same vein that are also of quality. Then later that night, we watched the Fright Night remake, and that was just okay, but Anton Yelchin's in it, and it made me think about Green Room and how much I like that movie. And so after we watched Fright Night, Katie went to bed and I turned on Green Room, and it blew me away again. This is probably my 3rd time watching it, and it was an even better experience on the 3rd watch. Honestly, they just nailed the tension, the atmosphere. The score is incredible. I love that like ambient score going on. And then the incorporation of metal and punk music as well. It's just a phenomenal siege movie. I don't think they could have done better, honestly. The cast is great. The writing's awesome. It's just like short and sweet. It's perfect. Then the next day, House of a Thousand Corpses, directed by Mr. Zombie. I was unsure about how my feelings would end up going into this movie. Usually with movies, you can like kind of be like, oh, I think I'll be into this, or I don't know if I'll be into this. And Rob Zombie, I enjoyed the Halloween remake, but I wasn't sure how like an original idea would be. But I actually think I don't think I definitely enjoyed this more than House of a Thousand Corpses, or than the Halloween remake. Sorry, the like kind of grindhouse sensibilities and even the weird like filters and stuff that he's using that are kind of like eye roll inducing with how prevalent they are. But I don't know. I just enjoyed the vibe overall that it created. It was very campy, but took itself seriously still, and just kind of very creepy, very odd, very off-putting, grimy and dirty and kind of disgusting, without, I don't think, being too exploitative really. So kudos on that front. This day is a good movie. The next day, Phantasm 4 Oblivion, directed by Don Coscarelli, who directed I think all of the Phantasm movies. Again, wasn't sure what to expect going into this. Phantasm 3 didn't astound me. 1 and 2 are both really good movies, I think, 1 being phenomenal. So I wasn't sure what to expect. You can definitely tell this was more low budget than the previous ones. But they managed to make an engaging, kind of understated movie that's still very much in line with Phantasm. I thought how they reused old footage, in I believe unseen footage from the first movie, was really, really interesting. It just weaves together very satisfyingly. It's not, I don't think, overly flashy or anything like that, although there are, I mean, they always have to have a couple explosions in these movies, but otherwise I think it's just kind of an interesting kind of on the artsier side character study of what's his name? Shit. Andy, is it Andy? I don't remember. And Reggie too, the main kid and Reggie. It was a surprisingly good movie. I don't know how 5 is going to be, but I'll watch that eventually and we'll talk about it. Then the next day, I was on a good run these 5 days, 4 or 5 days or so. I watched Bride of Reanimator. This was not directed by Stuart Gordon, but was directed by Brian Yuzna, who I believe produced Reanimator and probably other films that Gordon was involved in, and films of this ilk like Society. And this one kind of blew my socks off with how much I enjoyed it. It just took what Reanimator did and just took it 10 degrees further. Like they made it even weirder, even gorier, even wilder, even more disgusting, even more campy. Jeffrey Combs is incredible. Herbert West is like, no one else could possibly have done that character justice. So I think it's highly, highly worth watching if you enjoyed the first one. If you didn't enjoy the first one, you're probably not gonna enjoy this one either. And then on October 15th, several days later, I watched the Suspiria remake, directed by Luca Guadagnino, and really, really enjoyed it. It's a very, very slow build, beautifully shot as you would expect, with it kind of has these moments of explosions of gore and and violence, and it builds to the end where shit just goes down. The changes they make to the original setting and the original story, they kind of let you see behind the scenes a bit more. Like, I think they're trying to be faithful in a sense, but they're letting you see behind the scenes more at what the witches are kind of up to. And they change things here and there, like I mentioned with the setting there. It takes place during like a revolution. I don't remember which, but there's a revolution in Germany happening at the time of this movie. And so I don't quite know what it all means. I think I definitely need another rewatch at some point, but what I saw was really, really stellar. I thought it was phenomenal. I haven't seen any other movies by Guadagnino, so I need to rectify that ASAP, because if it's as good or even half as good as this, I think that it's definitely worth your time. Then the next day, I watched a movie called Anguish, directed by, forgive me if I mispronounced this, Biggest Luna. I found this just like looking for DVDs at a resale store nearby one day, and I just interested in the cover and the kind of the synopsis on the back. I just felt like buying it for pretty cheap and ended up watching it. And it's a very interesting movie. It's kind of one of those movies that messes with your brain a little bit at a certain point, and then so it starts as one thing, then there's kind of a middle period where it's kind of shifting, and then it becomes another thing, and then it has like very strange sequence later on, and then it kind of finishes up what it turned into. I really can't say much about it without spoiling it, so you should go into this movie as blind as possible. But it's a big recommend for me. Even though I didn't love it, I think what they were trying to do is worth watching just for the like experimental nature. That's all. So, and then on the 17th, I had another good run. I watched Evil Dead Trap, directed by Toshiharu Ikeda. Looking at his Letterboxd page with all his director credentials, he's mostly known and prominently known for directing pink films, which are essentially pornos that have a story or whatever. So this is not a pornography movie, but there's sex going on, of course, but in certain parts. But essentially, this is a Japanese horror film that is sort of taking heavy inspiration from Italian giallo films. And if that sounds like a good mix to you, it's because it is. This movie fucking rules. It's super, super entertaining. It has a bit of a slow start where they're kind of building tension, but then it just gets crazy. There's insane effects. Some of the kills are just mind-blowing in their in what they're accomplishing. Honestly, I think so. It's worth a watch. If you're not into kind of sleazy horror of the 80s or early 90s, then I don't think you're going to get much out of this. But I think for the experience alone, there's a lot here to dig into. So I recommend it wholeheartedly. Then on the 18th, I watched Christine by John Carpenter. This was a rewatch, one of the only rewatches that I did this month. Or this past month, I should say. And it was really good. It was more of a character study. Of course, the car is very foreboding, and there's some really intense sequences with the car like chasing people down. It's like explosions happening. It's on fire. It's bursting out of walls and fences and shit. So just I don't know what else to say about it other than that. It's just a good character study movie. It's enjoyable. It's not one of Carpenter's bests, but it's definitely up there, I would say. I definitely think I like more when it's of him when it's like more kooky and wacky. But still a great movie. On the 21st of October, I watched Hereditary, directed by Ari Aster, for the first time. I've had this movie on DVD for years and years and years, and it's the last of his movies that I've watched. I've seen Midsommar and Beau is Afraid as well, and it's really good. I mean, it's better than both of the other movies that I'd seen of his. It's a very slow burn and kind of set the standard for what modern elevated horror is, which, I mean, that term is stupid, but the A24 core stuff that happens now is very, very much indebted to this movie. It's good. I mean, it is really good. I'm not gonna lie, it's a really good movie. I have trouble with it because of what it inadvertently created with all of these kind of copycats, but on its own merits, it's pretty phenomenal. On October 22nd, I watched Jacob's Ladder, directed by Adrian Lin. I hope that this tape isn't done because I've failed my job, but it might have one more song, hopefully. Jacob's Ladder, this is another rewatch. It's been many years since I've seen this, but it was a really, really good psychological horror film There's some incredibly disturbing imagery. It is done. I wish that the stuff that got cut did not get cut, because I really want to see more of that like nightmare fuel stuff that they have going on. This movie, if you need an idea of what you're in store for, this movie was a heavy inspiration for the Silent Hill games. So if you know anything about those games, you know this movie is going to mess with you. And you know, it probably is a movie that has this conception in the general public that it's about, you know, a war veteran, and it's strictly about PTSD. But actually, it's more of a exploration into like living through, not living through trauma, but just like finding meaning is what I wanted to say. So it's not. It just uses the Vietnam War and the people who came back from that war traumatized as like a framing device for what is overall going to be like a more positive, humanist message about finding meaning in life. So yeah, it's a really good movie. Tim Robbins is incredible. He's such a talented actor, and able to convey such emotion, and also just like be put through some of some pretty heavy stuff. So I would definitely say go watch that movie. Only a couple left. Do I dare get up to flip the tape? I'm not cutting this if I do. So I think I don't. I'll just go quickly to the last couple. On the 23rd, I watched Hoy Sera. Forgive me if I mispronounce that. The Bone Woman, directed by Michelle Garza Cervera. This is a Spanish film, as you might guess from the title and the name of the director, about a woman who is newly pregnant and kind of going through some strange paranormal happenings, kind of relating to her pregnancy, and it's a very it's more of an exploration of religion and traditional values, and how they like kind of force you into a life that you don't really want to live, and less about the pregnancy itself. Again, like Jacob's Ladder, the pregnancy is more of a framing device for a different message. So I won't say much about it because I don't want to spoil anything, but it is a very good and well-made film. This is a movie that I would say, in terms of the filmmaking, it is indebted to Hereditary, but does not like rip on it. So it's a good movie that is influenced by that movie. So on the 24th, I watched another Spanish film. This is not Spanish speaking though, but it's directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky. This is Santa Sangre, and this is a very strange movie, as you would expect from Jodorowsky. This is the first movie of his that I've seen, but I know of his other movies that are very strange. And the best way I could try to explain this movie is, it's like if you made a giallo, and in a giallo, traditionally the killer is hidden the whole movie until the end, whereas in this movie, you basically see the killer's entire life and everything behind the scenes. So in that way, it's a very interesting kind of movie that turns things upside down on the traditional formula, and it's very operatic. It's very dramatic. The acting is kind of over the top. The gore is very over the top. Everything is larger than life. Everything is exaggerated and hyperbolized. It's a really, really fascinating watch. I recommend it, definitely. On the 25th, the next day, I watched Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. This is not really a horror movie either, but it is sort of a comedy film that borrows from horror films. If you're not familiar with Elvira, she was the host of what do you call those shows where they kind of like they watch a horror movie and they kind of like splice in commentary before the commercials and stuff. I don't know what they're called, but she was the host of one of those things, and it became popular enough that she was able to finance her own movie, and it's very funny. Cassandra Peterson, who is Elvira, is very she's a character. It's the comedy oftentimes is sort of like wink wink nudge nudge, like we know this isn't like funny, but it's funny that we're kind of playing it this way. I don't know how to explain it. Also a very horny film. And so if you're kind of against that, there's no nudity or anything that I can remember. But it's just like Elvira just like talks about her boobs like throughout the runtime, like kind of as a running gag. So yeah, I recommend it. It's a fun time. On the 26th, I watched Mandy by Panos Cosmatos. And this was an incredible movie. There's not, I mean, it's so sparse in dialogue, but it's so rich in style. But I think it still doesn't lack any substance, even though it's like the storytelling is very visual. So they're not like, like they're not speaking, like they're not telling you what they feel. They're kind of showing you visually with the lighting or with the like hallucinatory stuff going on. Is that a word? Hallucinatory? Hallucinogenic? Yeah, sorry, my brain I've been talking for too long. Of the movies this month that I enjoyed, this is like probably number one or two. This is a phenomenal movie. I know some people really don't like it. They kind of are put off by how stylistic it is. They kind of think it's like, I don't know, what do they think? They kind of think it's like cheap to do that. I don't know. I think it's silly, but it was a good movie. Really good movie. You should definitely check it out. And then lastly, on October 31st, I watched Predator, directed by John McTiernan. This is very much a dudes rock action movie, sci-fi as well, but enough horror that I thought it could be justifiable to put it here, to watch it during the horror movie marathon. And it's definitely less horror than it is action or sci-fi, but still a really fun movie. Lots of violence, lots of it's very, like I said, it's very dudes rock. So there's like some conspiratorial stuff going on with the government and with the military and everything. So yeah, just check it out. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. You should totally watch it. So yeah, I think that's everything. I covered it all. I wrote these all down, so I had some kind of notes. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully you stuck through it all. And I'll try and do more videos, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.